What is up, NFC West football fans, and welcome into another edition of the NFC West Roundtable. I am your host, Z-Bot, from the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel. I'll be your host tonight and for the rest of the season, and I'm really looking forward to spending it with you right here on the NFC West Roundtable. Before we kick it off tonight, want to let you know that this episode of the NFC West Roundtable is powered by BetUS, where the game begins. Receive a 125% sign-up bonus via the link in the description below, up to $2,000 on your first 3 deposits. Big day today in the NFL, and there's a lot to break down with all of your favorite characters right here on the NFC West Roundtable. So without further ado, let's get right into it, starting with Mike from the Arizona Sports Fan YouTube channel. Mike, what's happening, brother?
What is going on, Z-Bot? Appreciate y'all and everybody here that's in the chat. I've already seen people in the chat. Dan looks different, man. We got a brand new host. I'm super excited, Z-Bot. The Cardinals football is just around the corner, and yeah, I'm excited. This NFC West is going to come back to NFC Best, and I'm so excited about it.
Yeah, Dan let his beard go a little bit, and he smoked a couple of Marlboro cigarettes, and then it turned into me. So you're stuck with me for the rest of the season. Coming up next, representing the San Francisco 49ers, it's Jesse from Last Second Sports. Jesse, what's happening?
What is up, man? Yeah, a couple Zen packs, and here we are. This is the new Dan. It's absolutely crazy. Excited to be here, though, with you, Z-Bots. I respect everything you do. I'm glad you're hosting the NFC West Roundtable. Looking forward to spending the season with you, but I got to be honest, today was a really good day because we as 49er fans have been going through it this offseason with the whole Trent Williams thing and Brandon Ayuk. But today, the Rams are going through it even more, and it makes me so happy. I can't wait to see Jake's beautiful face.
I think we all can't wait to see Jake's beautiful face. And that, of course, is Jake representing those aforementioned LA Rams. And we're going to let Jake kick things off tonight. We have a lot to dive into, of course, being today the 53-man roster cut deadline. But beyond the cuts, the acquisitions, setting the roster into place, there was one move bigger than the rest, and that so happened to happen out in LA. Jake, walk me through what happened with the Rams today. I'll just give you the floor because as soon as I logged on, before I was even able to introduce myself, you were already getting into it. So I'll let you go right now. Tell the folks how you feel about what happened this afternoon with the Rams and Ernest Jones.
All right. Well, first off, Z-Bot, we're happy to have you. Obviously we love this roundtable. There's the growing community here. Jesse, Mike, whoever is representing Seattle today, who knows?
They will be here eventually, by the way. Good.
But yeah, but yeah, we're close. We're all close here. We have a great time, and we're excited to have you, Z-Bot. Everyone, type a W in the chat for Z-Bot right now.
I love it.
Just throw a W in there. But yes, to your point, I was furious, ferocious, whatever the hell you want to call it. This is my 4th live stream today. I can literally feel the back of my throat starting to fold because I've been talking all day. But, look, I have seen a lot of giveaways, right? We do them on Twitter. We do them on Instagram, whatever. I've never seen a giveaway this bad. Like where literally, I mean, the Rams trade of Ernest Jones today was repulsive. It really was. I've seen bad trades. I've had issues in the past, but I've understood them. Like I thought they should have gotten more for Jalen Ramsey instead of a 3rd-round pick and Hunter Long. I didn't think Hunter Long was that great. And a 3rd-round pick. I was like, are you kidding me? He gave up 2 first-rounders for Ramsey, but he's getting up there in age and, $20 million, whatever they were paying him. Okay, fine. Salary dump in a sense. Fine. Robert Woods coming off a torn Achilles tendon, right? Or I think it was ACL tear. Robert Woods coming off a major injury. Okay. I understand that. He's getting paid a little bit over $10 million. Totally understand. Like you want to, do a salary dump. I can't stand unless Snead does these pick swaps. I hate them, but I understand. Okay. You're doing a salary dump with Robert Woods. Fine. Same thing with Allen Robinson, right? Just didn't work out. Just getting rid of him. Understand. But Ernest Jones, let me tell you right now. Okay. Robert Woods is in his 30s. Jalen Ramsey was going to be in his 30s, I believe. And Allen Robinson was approaching his 30s. If not, he already was 30. Ernest Jones is 24 years old. His first year in the league, he was helping them win a Super Bowl against the Bengals. Okay. And he each year became one of the better linebackers in the sport. I'd say he's top 10 right now. Okay. And he's definitely one of the best blitzing linebackers. And to see the Rams, which by the way, this has been an organizational thing with linebackers. Yeah, I mean, London Fletcher is probably the most talented linebacker in Rams history, and they just got rid of him. I talked to multiple people on that roster, and they said that was the beginning of the end of the greatest show on turf when they got rid of London Fletcher. They've done this. Corey Littleton, I've always said, sign these guys early on. You get good deals when you do that. No, they lost Corey Littleton in UDFA. They lost him. Well, Ernest Jones was a 3rd-round pick. And I'm constantly told how the Rams don't value inside linebackers at all. Do not value them. Then why do they spend a 3rd-round pick on Ernest Jones? I don't know. People tell me that they don't value them. Well, that's a pretty high pick. And so last year has over 140 tackles, probably the most overrated stat to determine how good a player is. But still, 140 plus tackles. He had plenty of sacks for that position. And he's somebody that had become a leader, okay? This is somebody that Aaron Donald said he was passing the keys off to essentially give him the defense. This was his defense now. Ernest Jones, I actually talked to because I posted their depth chart in 2023 when they lost Ramsey, they lost Bobby Wagner, they lost all those guys. And I had confidence in that team, but I didn't love how they went about doing it. Ernest Jones was excited. He basically was like, I'm ready to go to war with these guys. There's nobody else I'd rather go to war with. A true leader. And we saw that last year. He was great for them. Great. What happened? Well, as Jesse knows, because the 49ers are trying to deal with it with 2 different guys, Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk. Money talks. And for whatever reason, we heard Ernest Jones was going to be fine playing through the entire year, not on a contract, totally fine. He's in a contract year, all of that. And a lot of different things happen. And guess what? We don't actually know. That's the amazing thing. After all of this, I was on a golf course and my phone blew up because Jeremy Fowler, and by the way, first person to text me was Jesse. Jeremy Fowler, he reports, the Rams have granted Ernest Jones permission to seek a trade. And I'm like, huh? Like, what? I heard this was going decently well. I didn't think that they would come to an agreement before the season, but I was like, okay. And then I start asking around. It's like, oh yeah, the Atlanta Falcons, obviously with former defense coordinator Raheem Morris, were like, really interested in him. And I'm like, okay, so maybe it's just teams like, reaching out, being interested. And then we get to today. And I had just I barely slept. I stayed up until 5 a.m. I made a video and I was breaking down all the different directions the Rams could go in if they trade Ernest Jones. And I was like, oh, Troy Anderson of the Falcons, Nate Landman, thinking all these actual difference makers, right? No, the Rams didn't even get a pick in 2025, much less a player. They traded Ernest Jones away for a bag of beans. And that's the thing that upsets me because I'm not even against trading Ernest Jones. I want to make that clear. I'm not against trading anybody.
It's all compensation for you.
Yeah, everybody has a price. Mm-hmm. Ted DiBiase Sr. said, everybody has a price. And I'm aware of that. No one is untouchable. But the reality is Ernest Jones is 24. They traded him away this guy was coming off both his Achilles tore, okay? And he's 32 and he's getting paid $30 million. And it looked like a just straight up salary dump. You don't trade a 24-year-old, and you definitely don't do the stuff I'm hearing about, oh, well, they have guys that they like in the clubhouse more. That's great and all, but you have him at $3 million. I don't care if that guy holds out the rest of the year. You'd be making more in terms of compensation if you just let him hold out the entire season, let him sign somewhere. You get a higher compensatory pick than the crap that you got. Also, mind you, the Rams threw in a pick with Ernest Jones. So not only are they not getting that pick until I'm 31 years old, but they're also literally throwing in another pick to acquire a higher pick. So they didn't add a pick. They just pick swap from 6th to the 5th round in 2026. And I have people in the Rams organization, and of course, the legendary Andrew Whitworth on Twitter trying to tell me that I don't know what's going on and that this is okay. And people have to be accepting of this. This is the assumption right now in Rams land. Everyone has to be okay with this. This is an objectively horrible trade value. Horrible. It's anyone would tell you this is not good value. And then people would say they're trying to do right by him. Doesn't work that way. You can't say this is a business, which is why we're moving on from the guy, and then not actually make the business decision, which is best for the team, and making sure that you maximize the value. So if they took less to send him to Tennessee, then guess what? That's bad business. But yeah, guys, just absolutely an abject failure. I still think 100%, I think this team can win the Super Bowl, even without Ernest Jones. I really believe that. But just because I think they're a great team, even without Ernest Jones, doesn't mean I want to sit here and celebrate when they make a bad move. Because this was just bad. I mean, all around, this is just bad.
Jake, absolutely not thrilled with the move the Rams made today with Ernest Jones. I'm interested to hear what Mike and Jesse have to say. Before I hear from them, though, it's time to welcome on the 12th man of this roundtable. Oh, really the 5th man, but the representation of the 12th man, the Seattle Seahawks, Norb Cam, who's mobile right now. Norb, you're on the move. Welcome in.
I'm on the move. Yeah, I was getting ready for this big international 2-week trip that we're doing in December. So I had to get my passport in order and things like that. It took way longer than I expected. So last week I showed up with the Fisher-Price microphone. So today I'm going to camera from the back of the car. So yeah, deal with it.
Hey, at least you're in an EV, so we don't have to hear the engine roaring in the background. It's nice and silent, so I'm digging that. Well, welcome into the show. We're in the middle of talking about the Rams dealing Ernest Jones today to the Titans for what Jake said, a bag of beans. So if it's really that bad for the LA Rams, it's got to be a happy day for the Arizona Cardinals and the San Francisco 49ers. Now, Jesse, I'll go to you because Jake said he heard the news first from you. I'm imagining the reason you reached out to him wasn't to give him a pat on the back and say, hey, great move. It was more or less, hey, thanks for getting rid of him. Thanks for getting rid of Ernest Jones out of this division, making the Niners' life a little bit easier.
I'm going to read you exactly the exchange. I said, holy crap, man, that's a big blow. And he says it's massive, especially because I don't think they would get a player in return. They'd probably settle for some stupid 5th-round pick. No, Jake. They didn't settle for a stupid 5th-round pick. They settled for a future 6th-round pick and gave up a 7th-round pick. Way to pour salt into the wound. I see a lot of Rams fans in the chat trying to excuse it away. I'm telling you right now, if my organization did this, I would be just as pissed as Jake is. The 49ers are possibly going to trade Brandon Ayuk away for a 2nd and a 4th-round pick, which I think is fair value. But the fact that the 49ers are trying to win a Super Bowl, if they give him away for picks now, it makes no sense. I would be pissed at the timing of the trade. Why would you make that trade? As Jake said, sitting him all year long, you would get more in return. What is the point? Are you trying to win or are you trying to make players happy? I get you want to be a good organization, but if a trade has to come about a week before the season starts, sometimes you just got to let the player know it's not going to work out. You proposed this way too late. Maybe if you would come to us earlier, we could have had a conversation and gotten something for you. But now we are trying to win and we need you to do that. You are in our plans for this year. We'll figure it out going forward. And I bet you he would have played for it. I don't care if they're happy about Spates or whoever they drafted. That is a quality football player that you gave away for absolutely nothing. And if you think it doesn't impact your chances to win the division or a Super Bowl, you're crazy. And you, at this point, you're caping for your organization and your team. That's blind fandom. Absolutely not. I would be pissed if I was Rams fans. But hey, you know what? Most of them are happy. They're totally fine because in less need, we trust. All right, have at it. I'm happy as a 49er fan, which means you probably shouldn't be happy as a Rams fan. But have at it. You lost a quality player for absolutely nothing today, and I love it.
Mike, do you share the same sentiment as Jesse there?
This is the best news I think I've ever heard in a very, very long time. And it's not just the Rams here, right? We're talking about two of those teams over there. And, Jesse coming out here saying we're going to probably trade Ayuk. And we've been through the ringer with just the 49ers situation going back and forth. This is a lovely day. We got to rejoice, NFC West, right? Everybody that are not those two juggernauts that are currently in the NFC West. This is a good thing. I think it's a fantastic trade. I see where you're coming from, Jake, in the perspective of where you're coming from as a Rams fan. I see where you're coming from. I would be pissed off as well, but this is a fantastic thing for me as a Cardinal fan. And honestly, I am just eating everything up. I'm watching the downfall. I'm watching the downfall of both your teams, and I love it.
Mike, you got more. Let me put this into perspective. Please. You got more for Cam Thomas, who has 3 sacks in his young career, than the Rams got for Ernest Jones. Cam Thomas, the Chiefs gave you a 7th-round pick next year. The Rams don't even get anything for this. 2 years from now, they see it.
The funny thing is that I had my own little flip about Cam Thomas, not because Cam Thomas, the person, but just the depth that we had. So I can only imagine how much you're fuming.
I had no idea why they traded him, and I have nothing against Cam Thomas, but when I saw he's only started 3 games and has 3 sacks in 2 years, I'm like, how did that guy net a 7th-round pick? But and honestly, this is what happens, is that the Rams have developed this. I mean, everyone knows reputation-wise, we missed on Ernest Jones in the draft. We'll just wait until year 4 of his contract, and we'll offer a pick swap a century from now, and they'll accept it. That's how it works. You want to get free talent? Just go to the Rams. Defensive, they don't sign anybody. They don't.
Let's go to Norb once again. Mobile Norb, I love it. Norb, when you first heard the news that the Rams were letting go of Ernest Jones for next to nothing, dealing him to the Titans, what were your overall thoughts as a Seahawks fan watching him leave the division?
Well, I'm with Mike because, of course, we're the small guys on the division looking up, trying to watch these guys from the top come falling down, and that was a nice domino to see drop. I mean, as Seahawks fans, to see Aaron Donald no longer on the Rams team, that was block number 1. But then to see this was a shock. But finding this from
Robot Man.
Looking to you guys, Jake. Can you guys still hear me?
We got you.
I can hear you now.
Okay. I think I went through a bad spot. It's that Fisher Price phone kicking in again. But yeah, Jake and Jesse. I mean, you guys are like my thermometer as to how your teams are doing. And Jesse, I'm still, you got a couple of big names in there that I'm still waiting to see where are they going to end up as this whole drama off season plays out as we get closer and closer to the regular season. So far, I'm like, I like the way that the script is written. So yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with Mike that it is fun to be sitting here just watching, the drama unfold on the other teams. While meanwhile, for here on the Seahawks, there really wasn't much drama going on. It was pretty kind of like, okay, the 53-man roster came out. I was like, okay, that's pretty much what I expected. So there weren't a lot of surprises, no big shocks. Really, the biggest drama happened before the 53-man roster came out, but we might talk about that a little bit later as a separate issue. But yeah, Mike, virtual high five, bro. Here we go. Let's go. Let's tighten this division up, man.
We will get to the 53-man roster next, but before we do, I want to just go back to you real quick, Jake, because I'm trying to wrap my mind around it. You got everybody in here stoked about this trade. You're obviously pissed from the perspective of the guy who loses, Ernest Jones. Take me into the room, right, with Snead, McVay, perhaps. What do you think was the ultimate straw that broke the camel's back, if you will, to just say, let's do this for a compensation that you find to be pretty much laughable? Why did it get to this point? And less than 2 weeks before the week 1, kicks off, why do you wind up going through with this when it seems so blatantly obvious that they didn't get anything in return compared to what the value was for Ernest Jones?
Yeah, great question. I think really, I do think yesterday, and I had heard a little bit about Omar Speights was doing enough where he could actually take over as a starter. And there was a chance that Ernest Jones, because he was so far behind in camp, dealing with a knee, he could lose the starting job at the start of the season, and they might just roll with they might roll with Omar Speights or Christian Roseboom or Jake Hummel or somebody like that. But like, I didn't know how much I really believed that. You know, I thought that was more so like damage control. And then I saw Greg Rosenthal's comment yesterday via Twitter, and he said, you know, my guess is, you know, the Rams were gonna sit a starter for a UDFA, and they basically got sloppy and are now, you know, kind of scrounging to trade him away before the season starts. And I guess for me, my biggest thing, like, obviously, again, I have no issue trading away Ernest Jones if you went out and you got something of use, something valuable. I mean, this isn't valuable. I would have rather had them cut him, to be honest with you, instead of having to look at another freaking pick swap. But, you know, I think the thing is, and this has to be said, is I think a lot of Rams fans are going to this idea where it's one or the other. It's, if you have a problem with this trade, then that means you hate Omar Speights. And on the other side, it's, if you don't have a problem with this trade, you have to love Omar Speights. And it's like, that's not the case. I mean, you know, both can work here. I think Omar Speights is a very good football player. And I actually right now would start him week 1, because I think that that's honestly, at this point, I think that's what happened. Now, I understand the injuries. I understand all of that. But we always talk about NFL being a next man up league, right? We always talk about that. And we always talk about how dangerous this game is. And they've had injuries. And it's like Ernest Jones, I know, dealing with a knee, but like at the same time, you know, one of these guys goes down, you know, now you have, like, say Omar Speights goes down, they're putting all of their bets into Omar Speights. Now you have Roseboom, Troy Reeder, you have Jake Hummel, and you have Elias Neal. That is your linebacker room. I would say outside of the Rams and like really informed football fans, maybe 95% of the NFL's fan base doesn't know anybody on the Rams linebacker room right now. Now, it doesn't mean they're bad. It doesn't really mean anything. It just means that they're basically unproven, not household names. Now, I want to make this clear. I think they'll be fine without Ernest Jones. I'm just more upset about this haul. I don't understand why you'd rush to trade a guy away for 2026 draft picks. Now, I'd understand a little bit more if this led to getting Kyle Pitts, or this led to getting one of the linebackers in Atlanta. I actually really like the idea of trading, you know, Ernest Jones for Troy Anderson, you know, the second most athletic linebacker according to relative athletic score since 1987. Would have been totally fine trading for him and like a 3rd round pick. I even assumed that what would end up happening is they would probably get him and a 5th round pick. That was actually my projection about the trade. I felt like that was something the Rams would do, and they'd be doing right by Ernest Jones, because Jones would go back with, you know, Raheem Morris, you know. But the problem is they got nothing for him, and people will tell you, but Jake, this and oh my God, you know, injuries, and he could have been a locker room cancer, and we don't know the whole story. That's fine. But the fact that it got that bad to the point where that's your value, you failed. How does everybody else in the league know that? How is that possible? And how does this always happen? It's like, I want to give them credit. They've been to 2 Super Bowls, Leslie and Sean McVay together. They've won 1. I think that they will get back this year, or at least get close to it. But at some point or another, like, and this has been my coverage, I'm very favorable towards the Rams. I'm very fair to the Rams. But when the Rams do something like this, I'm going to criticize, and I'm going to criticize them hard, because this can't be acceptable for a fan base. A 24-year-old linebacker who's been a leader in the middle, you can't just be okay sending him away for nothing. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And so, look, I do think they have plenty of guys in that linebacker room to have upside, and I'm excited to see that. But just because you have guys doesn't mean you couldn't have gotten a better deal, you know, with Ernest Jones. Trading him away, rushing to trade him away for 2026 draft picks is just laughable. It really is.
Alex,
can I say something real quick?
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
Just real quick. I just want to throw this out there. Last week, we were talking about the weaknesses of the opponents in the NFC West. Mm-hmm. And with him on the roster, I said I love looking at that linebacking core because I don't think it's any good. That was with him on the roster. What do you think I feel with him not on the roster? And then the last question is this. I see people in the chat saying, well, I mean, it's clear it was a distraction because of the money. Maybe I missed it, but did he get a new contract with the Titans? Because I'm pretty sure they just traded for him. And usually when these trades happen, if a player's that disgruntled about their contract, unless you're the Jets, because they're a terrible organization. But if you're disgruntled with the contract, that also comes with an announcement that they've got a new deal. How come that wasn't a part of it? Maybe he's not that disgruntled with his contract. Maybe he knows, hey, I'm coming off of a knee injury. I need to prove myself for another year to get paid. Maybe he would have been fine doing that in a Rams uniform. So it can't be the contract. That can't be the biggest reason because the announcement hasn't come unless I missed it.
That was also never reported either, Jesse. And that's the thing that annoys me. People are making up stuff now. And it's just like, it's fine to speculate, but stop acting like it has not been reported. Just like the benching for Omar Speights, we never, that was not reported. Like that's something that has been alluded to by Greg Rosenthal, who never, ever, ever used his name, and Andrew Whitworth, who did not use Omar Speights' name. They both said benching, didn't elaborate. So no one's reported that. So, I mean, I'm not a mind reader. You're not a mind reader. None of us are. Like, what the hell am I supposed to do? I'm just going to be upset because I'm just going to look at the ideas. I don't really care. This happened with Todd Gurley. You didn't get anything for Todd Gurley. You waived him. Like, I've seen this way too many times for me to just sit here and be like, yeah, it's totally fine. 2026. I mean, Jesse, I know this team like the back of my hand. I literally texted you that. I think it was on Sunday when I was golfing because I know how this team works. I knew it was going to be a pick swap. And then I got myself all excited about a potential player. But initially, my initial reaction to you was almost exactly what ended up happening.
Let's go to a couple of super chats. We got Scholar Ram coming in. He's saying Niners don't have their starting left tackle sitting out till he gets paid. He might retire, which sucks. EJ is gone, but he wasn't great in coverage. Lambs Let's Go is saying Rams lost Raheem and all three defensive captains. And then Alex Martin is kind of agreeing with you here, Jake, in the sense that the fans are kind of blindly accepting this. Alex is saying way too many Rams fans taking a page out of the Dave Lombardi glazing handbook, acting like the Rams can do no wrong and pretending like this move is okay. So not all fans, Jake, are happy with this move.
Oh, Alex, he had a really funny meme he put, and it was like kind of this nonstop rotation about, player in Rams helmet. We love him. Then eventually it goes around. They trade him. It's like, he wasn't that good anyway. Yeah. Can't stand that. Always keep the same energy. And I don't mean that in like a passive aggressive way. I truly mean that. I stand by that. I mean, if I like George Kittle at Iowa, I interview George Kittle, all that. And then he goes to the 49ers. You know what I told him when we were talking? I was like, I hope you make the Rams look ridiculous for not taking you. That's what I told him straight up. And he just started laughing. Because I was like, it's so stupid that they didn't draft him in the first 5 rounds. It was stupid that he even fell to the 5th round. But the point is, it's keeping that same energy. It doesn't matter if he's on my team or not. It's not like, Robert Woods got traded. I want Robert Woods to fail. Jalen Ramsey's on Miami. Now I'm going to say Jalen Ramsey's washed. We don't need him anymore. No, I'm going to keep that same energy, and I think everyone should.
Well, with that in the books, we're going to move on to the 53-man roster. Before we do, however, quick reminder that this episode of the NFC West Roundtable is powered by BetUS, where the game begins. 125% sign-up bonus in the link in the description below, up to $2,000 on your first 3 deposits. And Jake, just to calm your nerves a little bit, even though you lost Ernest Jones today, I'm looking at the BetUS live lines right now for the NFC West. Still in second place, but it is kind of a far climb up to the reigning NFC champs in the San Francisco 49ers. Minus 200 are the Niners right now, the win of the division. Rams in second place at plus 320. And it falls down even further with the Seahawks plus 750. Cardinals plus 1200. Jesse, I'll say in all these lines I've looked at, I think that's as big a favorite as I've seen to win the division across the NFL. So it looks like the Niners are prepped up to do it again. And I think you get a little bit of help now that the Rams gave you a little bit of advantage that Jake's clearly not stoked with at all.
Yeah, I mean, the 49ers should be the favorite. They're the favorite until further notice. You know what I mean? And as good as the Rams have been in the postseason, and obviously they beat the 49ers in the NFC Championship, in the regular season, and this is what we're talking about, the 49ers don't lose to the Rams. And so until the Rams can at least split with the 49ers, it's going to be really hard to win that division on any sort of tiebreakers, even if the record's the same.
Yep, absolutely. So once again, if you want to get on the Niners at -200, or if you think one of these underdogs has a chance, link in the description below. 125% sign-up bonus through BetUS, up to $2,000 on your first 3 deposits. So outside of the Ernest Jones trade, we had other major NFL news all day long, and that's because today was the 53-man roster deadline at 4 p.m. All 32 NFL teams had to submit their 53-man roster, which means football is almost here, folks. I can't even believe it, how close we are. And this is just one more step towards getting to kickoff in less than a couple of weeks here. So with the roster set, obviously that means whatever you're going into week 1 with is what you saw today for the most part. Obviously there's an outside chance for a trade here and there, but you pretty much know what your team is at this given point in time. So we're going to go around the table and get your overall thoughts on what you thought of today. Anything surprise you? Anything you wish would have happened that didn't? And overall, how do you view the roster as it sits right now, seeing the first overall depth chart going into the year, and how you think your team stacks up compared to the rest based on what you have? So we'll start with you, Mike. Talk to me about what happened with the Arizona Cardinals today, your overall thoughts on how the roster's looking, and how you thought today went down in terms of cuts and guys they kept.
Cool. All right. Yeah. Well, for the Arizona Cardinals, I don't think there's been a lot of, I guess, shock to the whole construction of the 53-man roster. I think it's kind of, pretty much as is. There's a couple things that I guess if you want to use the word shock, I guess we can kind of throw that out. Desmond Ridder was flat out released this morning. And that's not a shock. I guess the more the shock is I was convinced that the Arizona Cardinals are going to have 3 quarterbacks heading to the 53. But obviously that's not the case. But I could definitely still very well see the Cardinals either make a trade or potentially do something like get somebody off the waiver wire. So there was that. So Desmond Ridder just didn't have a very good showing at all. Like, it was one of the biggest storylines was who's going to be QB2 right behind Kyler Murray. That was one of the biggest storylines. So we don't have really much to talk about, but that's one thing that we're hanging our hat on. And Clayton Tune absolutely beat Desmond Ridder in preseason. Just the way he played, he's taken a step from year 1 to year 2, and he deserved it. So the Cardinals absolutely just did right by Tune, and they ended up just releasing Desmond Ridder, and I definitely think that's the right move. A couple things that also happened last night, which kind of shocked me. And again, it's not because of the player, but just because of the situation that we're currently under. The Arizona Cardinals decided to trade away Cam Thomas, which was one of our edge rushers. And as you guys already know, we talked last week, what's one of our biggest weaknesses is the edge rusher position. And the Cardinals ended up doing away with one of the guys that had 3 sacks the preseason. I get it. Preseason is preseason, right? We were playing with 2s, 3s, 4s, kind of however you want to call it. Cam Thomas did have struggling. He struggled from college to NFL. He really hasn't shined very much until this preseason. But I think the more, I guess, shocking thing was that the Cardinals just traded him when we had so much potential for depth in that position. Now, as the 53-man roster shook out, we did keep a lot of outside linebackers. Now, obviously, the Cardinals didn't value them that much because they still got a 7th round pick. They were probably going to just flat out release them. And it's kind of not a running joke, but it's one of those things that's very, very known amongst the Cardinals organization. Steve Keim, which was the last GM, everybody's like, oh, this is another Steve Keim pick, because that seems to be kind of the trend where if they don't perform, they don't do well, they're gone. And if it's not a Monty Austin-Fort guy, they're gone. So another, Steve Keim pick, which there were some people that had some promise with him, but at the end of the day, it was the right decision. So he's gone. We got a 7th round pick from that. Still a little concerning because I want the Cardinals to address it a little bit better. I don't think we're at all close to being fine with that edge group, but it's kind of one of those things where we have to kind of wait and see exactly how it all shakes out. One of the biggest heartbreakers, I guess, was Michael Carter being cut just because of the different type of running back that he brought to this organization. But the Cardinals are still keeping 4 running backs, with that 4th running back being our punt returner / kick returner and DJ Dallas. And of course, Norm knows a little bit about him. Other than that, like, everything seemed to be pretty right. Like it seemed to be pretty right, spot on. It's expected. Cardinals kept Xavier Weaver. Super, super excited about that. Out of Colorado, undrafted rookie. So we're really excited about that. Potentially maybe a number 3 for the future next year. we'll see. But overall, there's not really been very much of a shock. I think I pretty much covered what the Cardinals have done outside of 53. But overall, I think they did pretty good.
Deuce is coming in. He's saying tune. He was happy that he wound up winning the second quarterback spot. He says, we're going 11-6, division champs, LFG cards. And he goes, Norb, get a phone with a real camera. He's sick of the Fisher Price stuff. And Deuce is saying in order, Cardinals, Whiners, Lambs, Sea Chicken. So I think you can take a guess who Deuce is pulling for this year in 2024. And it would not be the San Francisco 49ers. And I would understand why, right? This is a current spot you're in right now, Jesse, where the rest of the division is sort of looking up, trying to get to where the 49ers currently are. Heading into the season right now, 53-man roster set in place this afternoon. How'd you feel about what went down, and how do you feel about the Niners as it stands right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't just start out with the Ayuk and Trent Williams situation. Obviously, Trent Williams still has not shown up. That's a big deal. And until he's in the building, that's something to be concerned about. I mean, it just is. The 49ers, one of their weak points, much like I said, the Rams' weak point, I thought was their linebackers. Well, they got rid of a quality linebacker. I feel like even with Trent Williams, I would prefer to be a little bit stronger in the trenches on the offensive line. Without him, it might be the worst offensive line in the league. That's just reality. So until he's in, I'm not fully comfortable. Brandon Ayuk has been showing up, so he's obviously on the active roster. No surprise there. I do expect both of these players to be there week one, but without an offseason, you never know how that can go, and the Jets are coming week one. So we'll see how that plays out. That being said, as far as surprises, the biggest surprise wasn't necessarily who made the team or who didn't make the team, but Elijah Mitchell, who was their number one running back just 3 short years ago and then has been the backup there for the last couple years. It was announced that his season is done. Now, the good news is for the 49ers, Jordan Mason was going to be the backup running back anyways, behind Christian McCaffrey. Jordan Mason, Seahawks fans, you would know this, runs just like and looks just like Marshawn Lynch. I mean, he's got the 24, he's got the dreads, he's bow-legged, he's shifty, he runs just like him. It's absolutely crazy. We're excited to see what he can do behind Christian McCaffrey, but it does suck that Elijah Mitchell's done for the year. And listen, not a big deal. A lot of people don't talk about special teams, but Mitch Wishnowsky, who's one of the better punters in the league, he had been out all preseason. They had brought in a kicker to replace him from the Pittsburgh Steelers, who had done a pretty good job, but Mitch Wishnowsky is now healthy. He's active. And then Talanoa Hufanga has been activated as well. There was some question on whether he would be activated or not. That was answered today. He is on the active roster. He has been activated. But outside of that, no big surprises, I believe, with the roster. And I don't think they're done either. They only kept 2 tight ends. They have 2 players likely going to head to IR, and Ambry Thomas and John Feliciano. So most likely they'll bring in another tight end, whether from another team or one of the guys that they decided to waive today. But nothing real big happened that was like, oh my gosh, what were the 49ers thinking? Pretty much par for the course.
Norb, we'll go to you next. What was your overall takeaway from the Seahawks 53-man roster deadline and your thoughts on how the roster currently stacks up heading into week one?
Well, as I kind of alluded to earlier, really not a lot of surprises on the Seahawks side of things. A couple of small ones where I think we had some competition just because there were so many players stacked at receiver. It was a question of who was going to be number 5, number 6, but we were pretty solid going into who we knew the 3 and 4, the first 3 and the 4th receiver would be. But starting at the top, quarterback was pretty much non-controversial. We knew it was going to be Geno Smith, 1, Sam Howell, number 2. At running back, Kenneth Walker Jr., Zach Charbonnet, and Kenny McIntosh. Those 3 were pretty much inked in. Brown, who we got. AJ Barner, the rookie we drafted from again. Ray Russell, he's a little bit of a surprise. He actually had a really good preseason.
Norb, we'll go back to you, brother. I think you'll be in a tunnel or something. We'll go back to you in just a second. You good? You got you back?
I'm back now.
All right, we got you.
All right.
Norb's connection's as strong as his team, apparently.
Yeah. Ooh, come on now.
Sick
right.
one.
Let me back that up. So, starting back at the top. So, not a lot of surprises. Sam Howell, quarterback, back up to Geno Smith. Running back, we got Ken Walker Jr., Zach Charbonnet, Kenny McIntosh. That was pretty much going to happen. At tight end, we got Noah Fant, Farrell Brown, A.J. Barner, the rookie. And then Brady Russell was kind of a surprise. He really stood out during preseason and training camp and made a name for himself and got himself into the rotation on tight end. Seattle likes to run those 3-man tight ends, so they got 4 on the roster at the moment. Wide receiver, that was the big competition there. We knew who the top 3 would be with DK, Tyler, and Jigba. And really the question was going to be 4 and 5. Jake Bobo, a big fan favorite. We knew he was going to be in there. But ended up going with Derek Young and Laviska Shenault Jr., who's going to be not only great as a receiver, but also a great returner, which he did some great stuff during the season. The big concern is on the offensive line. We've had to do a lot of wheeling and dealing in the center position. We got Connor Williams from the Dolphins, who's grades out well, but he's coming off an ACL injury, and he has not played at all yet. So right now it looks like it's Oluwatimi who's going to probably start with Connor Williams, assuming at some point once he kind of gets up to speed, will eventually take over at the center position. But Christian Haynes, who we drafted, is playing out great. I think he's really moved into that starting guard spot. Left tackle is Cross, who we expected. The biggest concern, though, is right tackle Abe Lucas. He has been dealing with a chronic knee injury and once again starts the season on the PUP, unable to perform, which really sucks because we thought we had our two tackles set when we drafted these guys. And unfortunately, Lucas and this knee problem has not gone away. So we're going to be going to a little bit of a tackle by committee, find out who's going to take the right tackle spot. Right now, it's a little bit up in the air who that's going to be, but it's probably George Fant or Stone Forsyth who's going to be shifting in and out for right tackle until we find out what Abe Lucas is doing. But on the defensive side of the ball, we love the way the line is shaping up right now with Byron Murphy, the rookie. He didn't play a lot. I think they're saving him for the regular season because they know he's going to be a beast. So they've been just putting him in spots, but he's been pretty much just waiting to unleash. But the biggest concern isn't really what they did with the 53-man roster, but what happened to one of our key guys at outside linebacker in that final preseason game. Uchenna Nwosu was basically playing one series, and during that series, he got chop blocked on a cheap shot by the Cleveland Browns and basically injured his knee. He's got sprained MCL and is going to, luckily they didn't put him on the PUP or the IR. So they're pretty confident he'll be back within the first 4 weeks, but he's banged up, which means he's going to probably miss at least 2 weeks, maybe 3 before he comes back. And it just sucks because if you guys remember last year, the defense started off great with Nwosu in there. And when Nwosu was out for the season with a torn pec, basically the Seahawks defense went to crap and they became one of the second worst defenses in the league after he left. So it was a tale of two defenses. And once again, one of the most key pieces on that defensive line out for at least the first 2 to 3 games. And that sucks because we know how tough this division record is. And just looking ahead, like the Niners, I know that it's very possible you guys might start out 5-0, could go 6-0, depending on how things play out. We have a chance to go at least undefeated for the first couple of games, or we should anyway. But with Nwosu out of there, it raises a lot of questions. And it just stinks because we traded Darrell Taylor before the 53-man roster was set because, he's a decent pass rusher, but kind of sucks when it comes to run, to containing the edge. So we traded him to the Jags for a 6th round, the Panthers for a 6th round pick. But then we lost Nwosu, so they had to make an emergency trade, and they got Travis Gibson from the Jaguars for the same 6th round pick. So essentially, they swapped out Darrell Taylor for Travis Gibson, who essentially is sort of it just didn't work out the way we would have loved to. You guys still hear me? I see my reception they're breaking a little bit. Am I still there?
We got you. Yeah, only a little bit at the end there, but that was good. I think we got the bestie at the end there.
Okay, all right. Anyway, so to wrap things up, the secondary, I love our secondary. It looks fantastic. We got our safety crews looking good. Corners, we got Witherspoon, Rick Woolen, Trey Brown. I mean, it's that's pretty solid. And the biggest concern, I guess, it's kind of like the Rams linebacking core. You got your concern. Like we have ours because Jerome, the one we got from the Dolphins in the offseason, has not played a lick due to injury during the entire offseason. And so Tyrell Dotson, he's kind of the man in the middle. And after that, we got a lot of uncertain names holding down the fort in the interior side of that linebacking crew. So yeah, it's a little concerning, man. The biggest concern is right tackle on the offense and linebacker. Everything else I feel really good about. But man, those two positions scare the crap out of me. And then with this Nwosu thing, man, I was feeling pretty good about how I thought this year would start. And now this could throw a major blow into what I thought was going to be a decent start this season. So a lot of things.
That's the worst part of the year. That's the worst part of the year. A last minute injury. You think you're stoked on somebody, and then something pops up and you have to reevaluate. It sucks, but we appreciate the insight.
Happens in a preseason game, which, has absolutely no bearing on anything and really had no reason playing. And for that one series of 5 or 6 plays, it happens. And the worst thing is Nwosu got called on a roughing the passer where he actually got blocked into the quarterback. And it's immediately after that play, he gets the chop block and then the knee injury. So if they never throw that flag, he's out of the game and he avoids the injury. It's just one of those things where you just look at A leading to B, leading to C, and it just sucks. So that's really the story going into this 53-man rotation. Everything else is pretty much as expected.
Love it. I'm interested to hear from Jake outside of Ernest Jones. I'm dying to hear about what else he thinks about the current state of the Rams. Before we get to Jake, though, real quick shout out to the sponsor of today's video, and that is our friends at Shinesty.
So now you'll probably notice that half of our representatives at Roundtable Sports always have their undies in a bunch when it comes to their favorite NFL team. And listen, I'm sure that they're getting sick of that feeling where they're feeling a wedgie rather than a warm hug. Maybe they want to say goodbye to uncomfortable chafing and hello to the softest underwear they will ever wear. Well, folks, let me introduce you to Shinesty.com, the underwear company that is here to revolutionize the underwear game. Let's be honest, life is too short for boring undies. These are so soft, y'all. You won't even realize you're wearing them. With the moisture-wicking technology and a perfect fit that never rides up, you'll quite literally feel like your balls are floating on a cloud all day long. And look at some of these absolute designs. And get this, folks, if you use our code at checkout, you can get an additional 15% off your order, RTS15. Remember, supporting our sponsors is a way to support us over at Roundtable Sports. So stop neglecting your balls and give them the gift of Shinesty underwear. Link is in description.
Jake, the Shinesty deals, I think they might have been better than the deal that the Rams made for Ernest Jones. So outside of Ernest Jones, I know it.
That deal put my ball out.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, Jake, outside of Ernest Jones, 53-man roster cut down for the Rams today, of course, including Ernest Jones no longer being on the roster. But outside of that trade, how did you assess the day for the Rams? How do you assess the roster heading into the year?
I think it's a great roster that has some flaws and definitely some question marks. Obviously, injury concerns in the cornerback room. You look at Darius Williams dealing with some injuries throughout camp. You look at Tre'Davious White dealing with 2 of the most devastating injuries that you could, ACL tear and, of course, Achilles tear. Kobe Durant has had his fair share of soft tissue injuries. But all 3 of them, if they stay healthy, that's a good-looking group. They added 5, I believe it was 5 UDFAs this year, made the roster. 10 rookies, actually 11 rookies are on the roster. They went with 3 running backs, mainly because of the gadget element of Jordan Whittington. That was a big thing Jordan Rodriguez pointed out. So that was one thing. They went with 6 wide receivers. They cut Xavier Smith. I hope he makes it through waivers because I think he's a good player. And I think he can help this team. Another kind of gadget element guy. They kept 3 tight ends, 2 quarterbacks. Jimmy Garoppolo, of course, is suspended. He goes on the suspended list. So is Alec Jackson. They had some guys where they put him on injured reserve. Travius Tomlinson, he's on season-ending injured reserve, but the 7th-round pick out of Kansas State, KT Leviston, he goes on injured reserve with a designation to return. Same thing with Laryl Murchison. I thought all around the roster was pretty good. I actually had I think I got everything right except for 3 or 4. Depends. Are we counting Ernest Jones? Because I did this way before with my projection, way before that news came out. So I'll give myself a mulligan there. I'll say I got everything right except for 3. But the reality is, I think it's a good football team that has depth. The offensive line has more depth than we're used to. And then the defensive line, I mean, I'm really excited to see, what this defensive line looks without Aaron Donald. I know a lot of people are upset about that, but the way I look at it is kind of like how Sean McVay does after a loss. How he's like, I'm really excited to get back out there and, tackle this challenge and turn things around. And for me, I'm really excited to see what this team is without Aaron Donald, because he's been with this team since, 2014. So, I'm excited, Kingpin, we call him. Braden Fisk, really excited for him. I'm excited to see Jared Verse. There's a lot to like. The Rams only kept 22 offensive players and went defensive heavy in this 53-man roster. And I think that was the right move, because I think a lot of these guys, their positioning isn't set in stone. I think there's going to be a lot, especially in the linebacker room, a lot of opportunity to win a job. So that's basically how I feel. I love the safety room. It's probably the best safety room the Rams have had. I mean, it is so loaded there. You have Cameron Curl, Cameron Kinchins, John Johnson III, Quentin Lake, who was just named as a captain this year, Russ Yeast, and then Jalen McCullough, who was somebody that, really ended up surprising people in the preseason, ended up making the roster. So fun roster, a lot of youth. So we'll see, what that brings, but I do feel really good about this team. Like I've said, I think that they can go all the way. And I think a big reason is, regardless of the defense, I think they have the offense to hang with anybody.
Matt Plowden's coming in, giving you a shout out, Jake. He's saying, shout out to Jake. Been following him for a few years now. Might not always fully agree with him on some things, but I know without a doubt the reaction or info I get from him is well thought out and not the perk. Go Rams. So big shout out to Matt. We appreciate the super chat. And one more, and it's a perfect theme because it leads me to what I wanted to talk about before we wrap up. And Ruiz SB Champs, he's saying, number 1, we got what am I looking at there? We got a sheep. Number 2, whiners.
A lamb.
3,
might as well
yeah,
say
a lamb. Oh, I see. Okay. And we got the Cardinals dead lamb. Okay, that's a ram. My God, I should probably use my critical thinking skills there, boys, and come out with the fact that was a ram, not a sheep. But either way, Ruiz has his lineup there for how he thinks the division is going to pan out. I'm glad he brought that up, because the next episode that you will see us all featured on, that's exactly what we're going to be doing right here on the panel. We're going to be ranking out how all 4 of these fellas thinks the division is going to pan out in 2024. So we look forward to having you for that next episode coming up later this week. But that's going to do it for this episode of the NFC West Roundtable. On your way out, make sure to hit the like button, the subscribe button, and of course, take advantage of that 125% sign-up bonus through BetUS, up to $2,000 on your first 3 deposits. For Mike, for Jesse, for Jake, for Norb, I'm your host, Zbot. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight. Peace.
Go Cards.